I could either be happy and look for opportunities, look for the lessons in everything, looking for the bright side, looking for the humor, because I've always been the guy who I love to make people laugh. I was like that class clown, and I love to make people laugh. And the other alternative, it seems really sad and really boring, actually. You can just sit around and feel sorry for yourself. And that sounds really distasteful to me. So I don't want to do it. I refuse.
Hey, it's Rocky. Welcome to Richer Soul. Today's guest is Hale, a soldier who had to overcome a lot of adversity. Imagine it's 12 months from now, and you've achieved your major life goals. How does it feel to be in the best shape of your life? To wake up energized, excited about the day? To have great relationships and friends who support you and propel you forward? How does it feel to have an excess of money, to be able to make the choices you want? To be fearless and open to trying new adventures? Imagine being connected to the universe and it providing everything you desire. It's possible over time, and your past does not dictate your future. The only thing holding you back from this vision is you. It's time to take control of our thoughts and use them to our advantage. Welcome to Richer Soul, where we achieve our dreams and bring balance to health, wealth, relationships, time, and spirituality. If you have not had a chance to listen to episodes 1 through 9, I encourage you to go back and listen to the framework behind Richer Soul and how to create the life of your dreams. You can also find all the show notes for this episode at richersoul.com. What if the door to opportunity only opens when you stop saying can't and start doing the one hard thing right in front of you? Today's guest is Hale, who knows that truth deeply. An Army EOD team leader, Aaron lost his sight to a blast in Afghanistan, and later his hearing to meningitis. Yet instead of giving up, he chose grit, humor, and purpose. Since then, Aaron has become a husband, father, real estate investor, business owner, speaker, podcaster, and even the first blind and deaf runner to compete the Badwater 135, one of the world's toughest ultra marathons. Let's meet Aaron and see how he does it all and what we can learn from that. Welcome to Richer Soul, Hale. It's great to have you join us today.
Rocky, thank you for inviting me on. I'm so glad to be here.
And I'm excited to learn from you today. We always like to start at the beginning. What was it like when you were growing up, and how much did your family and school teach you about money?
Well, we didn't really talk about money, but I came from that middle upper income suburbanite, middle America, Northeast Ohio, where we were just kind of on the edge of the burbs and like farm country. So it was literally my high school, the parking lot was Mercedes and, those ratty, rusty pickup trucks next to each other. Nobody cared, but everybody knew there were kind of different, there was a different social, geopolitical statuses, all that kind of stuff. But everybody, we're just kids. We just grew up all together. My folks owned my mom, my stepdad owned a handful of like small Cleveland services, like window film hanging and security guard company and janitorial services. Very small companies, but I didn't need for anything, but I also didn't need to toil. Didn't see that toil. And what happened was growing up, I was the kind of kid, the teenager that had enough natural talent and ability to get by without actually having to work hard in school or out. And I could get the rest of the way with little BS. So once I got to college, everybody knew how to, actually work, had some that ethics, work ethic stuff. You passed me by so fast. And within about 3 semesters, it was kind of a mutual thing. The university invited me to leave. So that's when I needed to figure out how to get those. There's like core values, right? The hard work, diligence, some kind of ambition, and that so, yeah, and of course, I was pretty depressed about all of it, and gained a lot of beer and pizza weight, and I needed to fix all that. That's why in 1999 I joined the Navy. I needed to get all that stuff and earn that tuition money back that I just literally pissed away. So the Navy would teach me how to do it and give me that GI Bill. And of course, like many service members, it was, I said it'd be 4 years and out. And of course, 13 years later, here I was. But yeah, that's the beginning.
Out of curiosity, because your parents own businesses, did they ever talk about business to you, or was it just kind of like their thing?
It only when telling funny stories about what these janitors or security guards were doing. It was kind of like stories like the janitors at a local grocery store in the middle of the night having the managers wondering why all the lobsters in the tank were dead, because the janitors were they checked the cameras, and the janitors were having lobster races on the floor during their shift at the middle of the night. So the lobsters were dead. But I didn't really talk. They didn't really talk about the ins and outs of operating a business. I worked for the janitorial company for a little while, but I wasn't going to get a management position as a sophomore in high school. So it gave me a bucket and a mop, and I went and started right at the beginning.
You also mentioned in your high school that you had kids driving the Mercedes versus kids driving the ratty pickup, but nobody seemed to care. That's not normally the case in high school. Usually everyone's got kind of their little cliques, and there's all that financial
Mm,
tension, but it didn't seem like it was in your area.
possibly, possibly. It was, but I didn't notice. I was kind of a floater. I was in all of the cliques. I was very social. I played on the football team, and I was grouped in with the jocks, and I'd love to get into trouble and maybe sneak a cigarette by the dumpster. So during lunch, so I was with those the shop guys, and vocational education guys, and I would hang out with the nerds because I like to talk nerdy stuff sometimes and computers. And I even joined like theater and the artsy people, and I loved crafts and photography, all that stuff. I loved everything, so I was all over the place.
You were crossing all the groups, so that would make sense. So you get into the Navy. Did the Navy give you that ambition and that focus and force you to kind of step up? And what is it? It's the Army that says be your best, right? I don't know what the Navy's.
That's the thing about leadership is the best leaders never feel ready to be put into the position they are. And I'm not claiming that I'm one of those, but maybe even the bad leaders that just recognize they are also put in that position. But yeah, from day one in basic training, I was shoved into these leadership roles. I mean, we were in that, you've seen like the movies like Platoon, Full Metal Jacket. They're all standing in those great big berthings with the bunk beds, and the drill sergeant comes out. And for me in the Navy at boot camp, they come out and they said, okay, who here has any college experience? 2 guys raise their hand. So is it me and this other dude? And they say, you too, front and center. We run up to the front of the berthing, and when I'm standing at attention, they say, okay, tell me, And one guy had a little bit of, I think, community college. And I said, I went to the Bowling Green State University for 3 semesters. I've got so many, barely have any credits. And he's like, okay, you are the recruit chief petty officer. I thought, what? You're in charge of these 80 people as far as the recruits go. Like, it's like you can tell the drill sergeant no. But then they said,
Yes,
okay,
sir.
what are you going to be, what job are you coming into the Navy for? I said, cook. And they're like, God help us. We just put a cook in charge of these recruits. But that's how it went. Throughout my Navy career, I would get used to a particular rank and I get good at it. And I really get comfy there. And the Navy would just say, you know what? We're going to give you another stripe, another chevron. And now, not only are you working with this team, that team is yours. Okay. And now you got to lead those guys and do a good job. And I might have been kicking and screaming the whole time, but I started getting used to not staying put, that constant movement, action, and change, growth, not becoming stagnant, comfortable in one position or one status, one rank.
Do they teach you, or do they just throw you in and expect you to learn?
Well, of course, they teach you how to be a sailor, the basics. I mean, basic training is like teaching you how to talk Navy talk. It's a ship, not a boat, and that kind of stuff, and how to tie a couple knots, and how to you fight fires, and there's no fire department out at sea. It's stuff like that. But then you get to your ship or your shore command, and they start. Then you go to a school, basically a specialty school, where they teach you your job, and that's where you spend a few more weeks. Like for me, I chose to be a cook, mess management specialist. They changed it to culinary specialist later, but the Navy's version of hotel restaurant management. And they sent me to the school, and it's mostly how to not kill somebody. It's all sanitation stuff, not about really cooking. But then they send you out there, and there are leadership schools throughout your career progression also. But it's a lot of OJT, a lot of on-the-job training too.
How did it go being a cook? Was that everything you had expected it to be, or did you decide to change?
Well, I loved, because I spent 8 years or so, just shy of 8 years in the Navy. Then I switched over to the Army, and I loved both experiences for very different reasons. I love the Navy because, for one, they sent me to Italy for 4 years right out of my A school. So
Perfect place to cook.
Oh my gosh! Well, the funny thing is, I said hotel restaurant management. I was on shore duty in Naples, Italy, and I get off the plane. They say, "Well," and I ask, "Where am I going to be cooking?" And they said, "No, no, no, no. This is shore duty. You're not going to be cooking. What am I doing? We run the hotel, basically the barracks." So totally surprised. They don't tell you this stuff at school. But because I was the new guy, they put me at the front desk clerk in the middle of the night. I was answering phones and handing out, key cards, taking trouble call tickets. It was not awesome, but I was in Italy. And I love the cuisine, the culture, the food, the ladies, the cars, the motorcycles, the architecture, the history. It was the coffee. Oh my God. So it was great. And it was a hardship duty. It was not. Right. I did 2 years in the barracks, and then I went to the work for the admiral of the Sixth Fleet, which is only a 45-minute move to the flagship in Gaeta, Italy. It was just down the road. And I spent another 2 years, and I really was cooking and went out to sea like a real sailor. Except we didn't do those 6-month cruises like the carrier groups. This was the flagship. We would float around the Mediterranean for about a month. We'd hit like 3 ports and head right back to our home port in Gaeta, Italy. And it was amazing. It was an amazing experience. The only thing was, not a huge fan of the whole Navy cooking thing. So the day job, loved touring around Europe, the Mediterranean while I was on duty, around Europe when I was off duty. Valentine's Day in Paris and Oktoberfest in Munich, and I mean it was amazing. And then I found myself doing this was early 2000s, so I joined in '99, time of peace, but soon found ourselves in two wars. And I was watching, it wasn't a flagship. We just go out to the middle of the Mediterranean, do our figure eights in a box. And I was watching the war, like everybody back in the United States, on the news and the TV. And so I picked up those internal skills, values that I needed getting after college. Learn how to do hard work, having some goals that I needed to achieve, getting some self-respect, and being, looking forward to, being ambitious and looking forward to the future. But then I also accidentally picked up those like extrinsic values, like, duty, and pride in being, part of something greater, service to a country and to my fellow service members. And when I was watching these wars unfold and the troops actually on the ground, I decided that I needed to do something else. I was outgrowing my role as a Navy cook. Loved the Navy, but I actually volunteered to deploy to Afghanistan for the first time in 2006 as a Navy cook. And that's when I met some EOD techs, the military's bomb squad, explosive ordnance disposal. And they're the guys that run into danger when everybody else is running out. Everything that goes boom from bullets to nuclear weapons is in their wheelhouse. And that's what I want to do. They're lifesavers, first responders. There's a tight-knit brotherhood within the military. Everything about it just clicked. So I asked the Navy if I could switch from cook to EOD tech, and they said no. they like my cooking too much. I don't know. So when I got back from that deployment, my contract was coming up. So instead of re-enlisting, I went over to the Army recruiter. He said, "Yeah, we'll take you. We're fighting 2 wars. Yeah, come on in." And I switched uniforms, got to keep my rank, went from petty officer to sergeant, and boom, trained up as an EOD tech, went to Iraq, went to Afghanistan in 2011. And of course, that's when I got injured.
What drove you to want to be in the middle of I don't know what's the right word for that, let's call it excitement?
Well, my my mom once asked me, if all of your friends were jumping off a bridge, would you do it too? I said, Mom, I'd be the first one jumping off that bridge and encouraging everybody else to come with me. So yeah, I am kind of an adventure, the adrenaline junkie, whatever you want to call it. I love, even after going blind, and I was whitewater kayaking, mountain climbing, rock climbing, went skiing. That's a trip, blind skiing. But the truth is that it wasn't a glutton for the danger side. It was the fact that I felt like my skills, my abilities, my talents were being underutilized. I could better serve the military, the U.S. and the war, that war effort by doing a different job. And EOD was exactly what I feel I was called to do.
So let's talk about what happened there. Does that kind of change your direction in your life and
Did it?
brings us here today?
Yeah. I was on my 3rd deployment, 2nd time to Afghanistan. I was an EOD team leader by this time. And that's where the guy who actually gets into the bomb suit and makes the long walk, you want the highest ranking guy available, the most experienced guy in that bomb suit. So the team supports, and I was 8 months into a 1-year deployment We'd seen a lot of business. There was just IEDs all over the place. I was actually coming right back. I was just back from my 2 weeks of R&R back in the U.S. Got to see my firstborn turn 1. Got to witness the whole family gather around the Thanksgiving table one last time. It's the best last page in the mental photo album. Then, my team grabbed me in our armored truck. We jumped into a supply convoy to head back to our area of operation. And on the way, lo and behold, there was something on the side of the road. So they set up a security cordon. We first sent the robot out, and the robot found what we were finding everywhere. It was just a pressure plate with 2 plywood boards, a plastic jug, like vegetable oil jug full of homemade explosive. It was all connected by lamp cord to a 9-volt battery every single time. So I got the robot out, and it took the pressure plate and ripped it apart. So it was more or less safe, but it couldn't get the rest of the components out of the hard packed dirt. So I jumped out, and I started making my way up with metal detector. I was clearing my way, and about 20 meters or so from the original ID was a secondary device that I didn't find until too late. And the blast hit me. This is probably the best place possible for we Hale boys who have denser than the standard skull. And it hit me square in the head. I don't know how it missed everything from my neck down. I was virtually untouched. But the blast just hit me in the head and punted me into the air. It was so bad that the blast was so hard that it took my helmet clean off. So it took my helmet right off, but I was still awake. I don't know how lucid I was. But my team ran in, grabbed me, dragged me back to a safe area. The medevac chopper came and got me. And within 48 hours, I was right back in the States where I'd just come from. And I was a Walter Reed sitting in the hospital bed, learning soon that they would not be able to fix my eyes since one of them was gone. Now the other one had been gashed enough by fragmentation that it couldn't be repaired.
So how did you deal with that? Because that can't be easy.
Well, first it was just a whirlwind. Doctors, nurses, tests, surgeries. It was all business. Then it was like the military administration talking about life insurance and where you want to go when you inevitably retire, and all this paperwork. And of course, but Walter Reed is in Bethesda. It's right on the Beltway, and there's just people coming and going. The diplomats and nonprofits and politicians all coming to shake hands. Thank you for your service, and it's all terrific. And I want them all out of my room because it was just. Plus, I did learn of this very quickly: is that when you lose your eyesight completely, you have no light perception whatsoever. You also get the bonus gift of a sleep disorder called non-24, shorthand for you can't reset your circadian rhythm. So it's kind of like living on a 27-hour clock. You're just never in sync with the rest of the world. So I was completely out of whack. I've been wide awake all night long and like a zombie just begging to go to sleep during the day. But that's when everybody's working. Like the nurses and the doctors, they want to take the test and blood. I'm like, I want to sleep. But eventually I started dealing with the demons, the what ifs, the why me's. Like, why does this happen to me? I trained so hard, and I realized very quickly that it wasn't happening to me. This was something that was happening for me. I just had to figure out. And it was the military had taught me, and especially EOD had taught me this resourcefulness, is that, things being hard. This is like, I think General Jim Mattis in his book Call Sign Chaos said, is that things being hard were never a good excuse for mission failure. And I had my family around me, one son at the time. There were these wounded, service members up and down the halls. They were all fighting their fight. They weren't giving up. Who was I to say that I had a monopoly on pain and suffering? So I decided that, I'd have to figure out not, what I, stop thinking about what I couldn't do anymore and figure out how can I still be the best me I can be. I changed my perspective to let's figure out how to continue the mission.
Do you find most service members in your situation do something like that?
Oh,
Take
yeah.
that
Well,
attitude?
oh, yeah. Well, a lot of them did. And there's a lot of camaraderie, even in the hospital halls. I mean, one of my fellow team leaders from my company was injured just 2 weeks before me. So one of my buddies was just down the hall. And he recently had lost one of his legs below the knee. And he comes wheeling in 2 weeks later. He's wheeling in. I'm in the hospital bed now. And he goes, Hale, give me your hand. You got to feel this. I'm like, the military, I don't know what he's about to do. I go, oh, no. And he just puts my hand up under his chin and goes, dude, the Marines have this attaché, liaison in the hospital, the Marine EOD techs. As soon as they come out of ICU, he asks them, how do you feel? If they say fine, which they all do, they're Marines, he hands them a razor and says, get back into rigs. And they have to, get clean shaven. He says, the Army doesn't have one of these liaisons, dude. You got to grow your beard out. It's driving the Marines crazy. So that's the kind of thing. I mean, I didn't want to laugh. I didn't want to feel happy. I was too busy wallowing. I was too busy mourning, the loss of my eyesight. And I was too busy, but I couldn't help it. I had too much support, too much good sentiment around me. I had too strong a team to just dwell. So I had to smile, and I had to look at the bright side.
And in spite of all that, you had another setback, didn't you?
It didn't take long to get out of the hospital after losing your eyesight, because Walter Reed, they didn't really have much for me. There was, repair the burns and scratches and scars and stuff, but they're dealing with people, service members, that are losing limbs. Right? They're doing prosthetics and training, teaching them how to use the prosthetics. I left and went to a blind rehabilitation center, basically blind school, but I was out of the hospital. I wasn't getting treatments. So I started living the best life I could. And for the next 4 years, like I said, I was kayaking, mountain climbing. I joined an all wounded veteran team up a 19,000 foot peak in the Peruvian Andes. And I was maybe overcompensating a little bit. I was terrified of being stuck on the couch for the rest of my life, confined by my condition. But then about 4 years later, I was coming back from one of those trips, and I got sick. It was like I woke up I was feeling fatigued and dizzy. I laid down for a nap, and then I don't know how long, the moment later, I woke up and it was like the worst migraine. It doesn't really do it justice. I called 911 within a moment. I said, this is bad. I contracted bacterial meningitis. It said the bomb blast had, besides taking my eyes, had also cracked my skull. And I was leaking spinal fluid, a very slow leak right through my sinuses. And path out is path in. So I contracted meningitis. It was attacking my brain. And I went to the hospital. The bacteria, we fought it off, but not until after a stool was left of my hearing. So for nearly a year, until the cochlear implant implanted and tuned on, tuned in. I was pulling the full Helen Keller. Of course, that was the time when I was thinking, man, I really should have learned that Braille. Except there's so much technology; it's like a dying art. Everything's audio based. Who knew? So, yeah, it was a tough time. I went through the whole stages of grief, and I was an unhappy camper for a little while. It also stole my vestibular balance, that inner ear gyro, what also resides in the that same location that stole the hearing. So I was deaf, blind, imbalanced in a couple ways, and I did what anybody in my situation would do. I started a chocolate company.
Well, you might as well enjoy something, right? Chocolate's enjoyable, so what better way?
Yeah, it was like that last page in the photo album. Thanksgiving was coming up, and I just needed something to do except mope, right? To dwell. I've been preaching about this triumph over tragedy and success because of struggle, not despite it. And it was like God has that sardonic soldier's sense of humor. And it was like, oh, yeah, do it again. Right. So, pointing up to this guy going, we're going to have words. But he was right. I was like, I needed to test myself again. I needed to be tested again. And I needed to learn a little bit more. And that situation taught me once more. And it went beyond, why is this happening to me, to why is this happening for me? And to evolved again to, from when is this happening for me to why is this happening for me, that I can share, I can teach. And so I don't know where I learned it, but there was this quote, probably on a Facebook meme somewhere, but it said that someday the story of your struggle might be the blueprint for someone else's survival. And whoa, okay. So I need to struggle, and I need to cultivate the story in the right way so that I can communicate it so that somebody will survive. That somebody will get through their challenges, their hardships. The fudge company was something to do for Thanksgiving, but I kind of overdid it. I just started cooking so much. I was having fun. And my girlfriend at the time, my wife, now started giving it away to friends, family, and all that, neighbors. And they came back asking if they could buy more of it. And I said, well, of course you may. Before we knew it, I set up a great home gym in the garage. If you can imagine, it was like the stationary bike next to the rower, next to the treadmill, next to one of those conveyor belt shrink wrap machines. And we were making a pretty, tidy living right out of the home kitchen. But OSHA said that once we started selling so much, it can't really call it a bake sale. So we moved into a larger, commercial kitchen, called it Extraordinary Delights, or EOD Fudge. And that, the proceeds from, the profits from that business, we rolled into real estate and became, real estate investors. And that was fun. And that was another struggle. I mean, all of it was stress and struggle. And, entrepreneurs, what do they say? It's like, it's like being an entrepreneur is kind of like being manic depressive, where you just go through bouts of complete despair and total elation. And that's kind of what it was like. It was like learning, like, how do I do this? We're about to go, we're about to, be totally bankrupt. And then all of a sudden you get that sale and you're like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. And then we bought, the real estate, and I did of course, the easiest thing you could think of. We bought out of state from an online auction using hard money. And we were going to do the Burr method buy, renovate, rent, refinance, repeat. As a blind, deaf guy, that was probably unwise. It turned out exactly like you might imagine. It was a total disaster, but it turned out in the end it had work out. And now we're doing the burster method. We do like a value add into a short-term rental. So we get the appreciation and the cash flow. And I love it. It's a ton of fun. And in the last 2 years, I've been doing my own podcast, sharing other incredible stories of struggle and triumph. And I tell you what, and of course, like you just met a moment ago, had a pair of twins in the interim also. Not a pair of twins, just one pair of twins, because I shouldn't be the only one who's confused.
Well, thank you for having me on your show. That was most enjoyable. To be on the other side of the microphone, sometimes that occurs,
Well, it was an absolute pleasure.
This episode of Richer Soul is sponsored by the Profit Answer Man podcast. If you're a business owner who wants to scale and grow, increase profits, or want to have strategic conversations around your financials, then check out the podcast. You'll learn how to work less, increase cash flow, increase profits, and build reserves to help you weather storms. It's built on the Profit First methodology of pay yourself first. The Profit Answer Man podcast is a must listen to for every small business owner and anyone who wants to help them survive and thrive. Check it out on your favorite listening platform.
So, what do you say to people who then come to you and go, oh, I can't do this and I can't do that? And I'm talking about people not in your situation, but people who, let's call it, they have all their faculties and everything about them, and yet they still complain.
I still complain. It's human nature. But I don't allow my kids to say can't. They're just not allowed to use it. That's a hard habit to drop. Because simple stuff like, Dad, can I watch TV? No, you can't. No, you may not. Which is proper English anyways, but But I don't want them to say can't. Because can't, it shuts the curtains and slams the door, rolls up the welcome mat on opportunity, on creativity, on innovation, on potential. It just shuts the door. It cuts it off. It turns the light switch off in your brain. And one thing that I found out is that you just have no idea what's possible. So complaining is fine. Just don't say can't. And don't complain for too long. That's kind of like, what do they say about, on the highway of life, looking in the rear view. You can look in the rear view, but don't stare, right? You got to look forward. I love when people come up to me and say, you've taken all my excuses away. And I think, well, then I've done my job. Now, I need somebody sometimes to take my excuses away because I still have them. I'm still human. Right? It's funny when I get off an airplane, I'm just stepping off an airplane by myself, and somebody walks up to me and says, "You are such an inspiration." And I'm kind of it's just a tube, really. It doesn't take much. You could do it with your eyes closed, but they don't know. They don't know what I've actually accomplished. They just see somebody who's blind and not curled up in a fetal position somewhere crying because of, how miserable, because they imagine themselves not as a blind person, just not being able to do everything they normally can do right now. But the truth is, we are capable of so much. We don't give we don't give ourselves enough credit. So it took these challenges, these struggles, for me to unlock so much of my potential. It took me getting kicked out of college and going into the Navy to just ignite the potential in my life. It took getting injured to really appreciate it. I know it's cliche. It's like that second lease on life, but yeah, I was terrified of being condemned to blindness and inactivity and sad situation. So I got moving. And then it was, okay, I did it. That felt great. And I can do more. But I gotta bring people with me. I gotta reach back and start pulling them up. So that's when I started speaking. And that's when I started the podcast. And I started raising money for great causes. And the thing is that, they say that metaphor where you got to fill your own cup up before you can fill others. And I don't see it that way. It's like, abundance doesn't work that way. Abundance is like cut the bottom of the cup off and let it flow right through. Abundance flows. It's you got to let it circulate. You got to give it, and the more you give it, the more it fills your cup. So the more I can give away, the more fulfilled I am in my life.
That's a phenomenal attitude. By the way, talking about can't, I'm remembered of a quote that one of our past guests, Aaron Walker, talked about, and he would tell the story that his mom always said, can't, couldn't do it, so could did it all. And it's just, that someone's going to do it. Why not me? Why not you? And I think that can-do attitude goes far, and it's impressive to see you to be able to do that. So you speak now. When you speak, what are you hoping to accomplish? What's your goal with that?
Besides the speaker's fee? No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, the speaker's fee is always important, though.
Yeah, that's. I really do want to. I want people to be motivated. Also, I want them to be inspired. And I think it was Ed Milet who was talking about motivation, and then inspiration, and then aspiration. They get motivated is just that's like a sugar high, and inspiration is something that you take with you, all right, and then it's lasting. But then aspiration is when you actually get to open the door to somebody else's. You widen the frame of that window to life for people. You broaden the perspective, and it's like giving somebody a pair of binoculars and saying you can look a little bit further. And that's what I'm hoping to do, is to get people to aspire to a little bit more. We get so caught up in the challenges and thinking that we can't overcome, or that something might be too hard to even start. And I want them to believe that, a lazy bum dummy like myself can accomplish certain things. Gosh, you can accomplish a lot more. So that's what my aim from the stage is.
And you still deal with all of the issues of life that I think we all do, especially even raising kids and all of that. We're connected on Facebook. So I see you posting a lot of the stories of just, daily challenges that we all have to go through. And I think sometimes we forget when people are on stage that they too have to face daily challenges, don't they?
Well, yeah, like I said before, I mean, even motivational speakers are demotivated from time to time. And yeah, I face challenges daily. Comfort zone, what is that? I've got for one, I've got 3 boys that eat too much, break too many things, and are growing way too fast. So every time you think you're in a routine, they change it on you. So it's a constant challenge, and I love it. That's probably what you read most of, because I love sharing about all the funny little foibles and things. I do so much learning with my face throughout the day. Pain has a lot to teach if you're willing to learn, and apparently I'm not. But yeah, it's a great adventure.
How do you keep that constant positive attitude, though, in spite of all the setbacks? I mean, it's there.
Well, I mean, there's two options there, right? You can either look at the bright side, or the other option is this is going to really suck. And I can either be happy and look for opportunities, look for the lessons in everything, looking for the bright side, looking for the humor, because I've always been the guy who I love to make people laugh. I was like that class clown, and I love to make people laugh. And the other, the alternative, it seems really sad and really boring. Actually, you can just sit around and feel sorry for yourself. That sounds really distasteful to me. So I don't want to do it. I refuse.
You said you haven't taken up a role as a comedian. You said you wanted to make people laugh. And
I have considered that, but the more I hear about like Seinfeld and his method, it sounds like a lot of work. But yeah, no, I mean, I'm already on stage and I try to put in as much humor as I can into it, because just the story is it's a big pill to swallow, even when you're not actually living it. Talking about the explosion and the sleep disorder and the hearing loss and the balance and all that other stuff, that all the fun that comes with all of that. That's a lot to take in. So I gotta put the humor in there. It just makes the rest of it easier to swallow. But then I get to practice a little bit of my comedy set mixed in.
What it's I don't know what Seinfeld's odds are, but I'm guessing, it's like 1,000 bad jokes to get the one good hit. But all anybody sees on stage is the perfection of the 1,000 tries that didn't land just perfectly.
I wasn't born. I think I was born a storyteller, but I wasn't born a great stage speaker. They're related. They're good cousins. You got to practice at being a speaker. You got it. And I remember, just thinking back on some of my earliest speeches, and I cringed. I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe I did that. And how many times I've left the stage, and as soon as I left the podium, thinking, oh my gosh, I left out half of my speech, right? But nobody knows except me. And everybody goes, oh, that was such a great speech. I'm like, you don't know the half of it.
Do you get much negativity or much judgment or even maybe just pity from others, or is that not really show up in your world?
Yeah. The most of the negativity I quote unquote see is when I go into the blind support Facebook groups. And there are those kind of groups like the hearing loss and all that kind of stuff. I'll join those groups so I can help there too. And it is very sad that there are many disabled folks that they succumb to that alternate, perspective on life. This is too hard. This is too difficult. I don't want to go outside. I don't know how to make friends. I don't know. I can't work. So I don't have any money to live. And it's really sad. It's really terrible. But it is just stepping out with a cane to navigate your world. That is a scary, scary thing. Not to mention holding on to a tether and running down the road. But after you diffuse a few bombs, it doesn't seem so bad. But I can understand where they're coming from, but it's really sad. The pity part directed at me is people that just don't know. They see me and they go, oh. And I love it when somebody comes to me and they see that I'm blind and don't know that I'm deaf, but they talk to me in all caps. Like, how did you know I was deaf too? Thank you. When it's People don't understand. They project their own fears, their own worries right on you, but they don't know who I am. They don't know what I've accomplished, and what I'm capable of. And that's the thing about everybody else. This is the same mentality, is that we project our own fears on people, and sometimes those people believe what other people say. So we believe our own bad self-talk, and we believe others' negative. It's not self-talk, it's talk. And it drags us down. We need to be collectively encouraging each other. Like, yeah, go do that. Bite off more than you can chew, but gnaw like hell. Do it. Just step outside. No, don't blindfold yourself and walk down the road. I do not recommend that. But do things that are scary. Do things that are hard. Do things you're not sure you're capable of. If you fail, awesome. You just learned something. And then maybe next time you can get a little bit further. Maybe a little bit further, until maybe on the 5th or 10th or 100th attempt, you actually accomplish it. And how good will you feel then? But I tell you what do they say? The pain of the struggle is far less than the pain of regret. So, you can pity me all you want, but you don't know what a great time I'm having.
And what you said is so true about regrets and not trying, because that's what everyone's dying thing is. I shoulda, woulda, coulda, and at that point it's too late. How has fatherhood treated you? You've got 3 rambunctious boys, and yet you seem to get along fine.
That's like that question. How's life treating you? Like I ran over its cat. Like it caught me with his wife. Fatherhood is amazing. I tried to convince my wife to let me name our twins Ian and Xavier, since our last name is Hale. That would be an Ian and X Hale. She didn't go for it. But like I said, it's an adventure. The boys, we cook together in the kitchen. We do these like cardboard, like Amazon box scrap boats, and take them into the pool and see who can race them across the. I mean, we just have some fun. We have attempted to grow lemon trees, lime trees, banana trees, blueberries, raspberries. Right now, we're working on cultivating a mint sprig into a plant. It's not looking great, but and by the way, you can't just plant a navel orange. There's no seeds. But the boys don't care. They're having fun. They're like, we're going to have a banana tree in the backyard. And they just shove a banana in the dirt. Let's give it a try, see what happens. But I love being a stay-at-home dad. I mean, occasionally they run in the middle of an interview, but that's like the whole life. Life just it intervenes when it wants to. And I've had to be more dynamic.
It is. Any parting words you want to leave for those who are listening who just still have the internal doubts?
I think that I just want to remind people, though, that they should reassess where they're going. A lot of people, I think, nowadays feel lost, right? There's this maybe a collective sense of lost purpose. Like I can't find my purpose, and that's like you could have a map, you could have a compass, but if you don't know where you're going, none of it helps. And your purpose gives you that energy, gives you motivation, and motivation gives you energy, and energy gives you that purpose, and to take action. It defeats just about any morning hack that you can think of. But I tell you what, just have you don't have to have I interviewed Jordan Grumet, Doc G, a little while back, and he came out with the Purpose Code book. And he talks about purposes being a big P or a little p. You don't have to have a grand purpose like saving the world. Maybe it's just, fixing a few bikes for local kids for a little while and turning that into a business or something. Cooking fudge for Thanksgiving dinner and turning it into a business, that's not a big earth-shattering P. But it got me off the stool at the breakfast bar feeling sorry for myself. And it just got the ball rolling. So I wouldn't worry so much about being a rut. Just get moving. Think of it on the fly and just do something that interests you, that you like doing, you want to cultivate more of, and it serves others. Because the number one thing in this life isn't what you make, but what you give and how you affect others' lives. So how you leave your legacy is the impact that you've made on other people's lives.
Doc G's been on 3 times to talk about wisdom because he's a hospice doc. So a lot of the early things were about the regrets of dying and what he saw. And so learning from his wisdom. And then when he released his last book, he also came on, which is what you were talking about. And so it's very true. I know for me, I think that's my biggest struggle is getting started. Once I get started, things just happen. But that first step, always the toughest.
It really is. And you know what, Jordan, Doug G, he's awesome. He's a terrific guy. And I love his books. Just good reads. And yeah, that first step, getting started, is getting out of your own way, really. It is definitely the toughest part. It's like, going to the gym again. I don't know who said it, just the 5-minute rule. I don't care if you even pick up a weight. Just go into the gym, get laced up, walk into the gym, and spend 5 minutes there. And then walk out. Check the box. You did it. You made it to the gym. I don't care if you worked out. You went there. The next day, spend 10 minutes. And if you're there, maybe do a couple push-ups. All right. Don't go too far. All right. All right. Check the box. Build a habit. Now you're doing it. And you can build from there. But the first step is showing up.
That it very much is.
It's time to learn the secrets of life.
What's one truth about success you wish more people understood?
That's supposed to be a one-word answer?
No,
one thing about
short
success.
answer. Short answer,
Short
not
answer.
one word.
Success, I think, looks like dirty overalls and stinks to high heaven at the end of the night, at the end of the day.
It takes work, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
It does. What did you learn later in life that you wish you would have learned sooner?
What didn't I learn? Like I said, I took a long time to mature. Financial literacy, because I liked to work. I just didn't know it, but I liked to spend my money even more.
And that's literally the key. As long as you can spend a little less than you make, everything will work out. Most people tend to go the other direction.
Nobody told me.
Oh, sorry. If you were to give an 18-year-old one specific piece of wisdom, what would it be?
You'd have to bleep it out. 18-year-old. Do something uncomfortable every single day. Something you hate doing. Do something 20 minutes. One thing new and uncomfortable. Just do something that hurts a little bit. Not just physically or not physically in that sense, but do something you don't like doing every single day.
I'm still working on learning how to get comfortable being uncomfortable.
Yeah.
One of these days.
I think it gets. I think that saying gets overused. It's almost becoming a cliche, but you really need to look for ways in which you're becoming almost complacent. And that was something I remember being on there was like Navy propaganda posters up on the ships, in the buildings. There was like loose lips sink ships, and there was one that just said complacency kills. And of course, it's like, what do I do with that? But the truth is, complacency does kill. You're either green and you're growing, or you're brown and you're dying. So you got to keep growing, and that means doing something that keeps you from being stagnant.
I like it. If people would like to learn more about you, follow your work, where can they find you?
Well, you can find me on the Point of Impact podcast, A. Clay Hale on Facebook. You can follow me there. And we're on Instagram, Aaron Hale on Instagram.
Awesome. We'll make sure to put that all in the show notes. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Rocket, thank you for having me.
We are all going to face adversity. You can either use it to close a door or open yourself to a new level of resilience and abundance. The reality is, growth comes from refusing to say can't, choosing our discomforts over complacency, excuses, and letting abundance flow through service. What's one uncomfortable step you can take this week that moves you closer to your purpose? I also had the honor of joining Aaron on his podcast, Point of Impact. Check it out. If you know someone who's stuck, who needs to hear this message, do us all a favor, share it with them. Help them break through too. At the end of the day, we got to go do scary things, and sometimes we fail. And you know what? That is okay. Thanks for listening. Have an abundant week.